Hello, 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 and welcome to the first episode of our coverage of the 79th edition of the Cannes Film Festival. This year will be our fourth year, is that right? Fourth year doing this
so,
already.
yeah.
I can't believe that. Fourth year. Both of us are press this year. I'm Eliana.
And I'm Patrick. Hi.
How has landing on the Croisette been? How has the year been?
Doing okay. We're here barely on day 2. It's about to be midnight. And day 2 in Cannes is basically day 1 because most of the things really start off on the second day. And you still have a lot of debuts on the second day. You have a lot of openings on the second day. And I think we might be able to talk about some of them. But in the meantime, how have you been, Eliana?
I have been all right. I would completely agree with you that this year, the first day, which is the 12th, and the festival runs from the 12th to the 23rd of May. In the past few years, it has run around that time period as well. And the first day is usually a nice restored film, a nice classic, a nice preservation initiative that in previous years has been an epic film, over 2, 3, 4 hours long even. We had L'Amour Fou by Jacques Rivette. We had
Abelgon's Napoleon
Part 1.
That's true.
And what was the other film that was just...
we had a silent movie last year,
yes.
Gold Rush.
Yeah, there was Gold Rush last year.
By
Charlie Chaplin.
Uh-huh.
And then there was another one that I really adored when I saw it. La Maman et la Putain. But this year, we had Pan's Labyrinth. And unfortunately, neither of us made it to that
I'm not
screening.
So sure. I think it was a conscious choice not to go. I mean, it barely feels like a classic, no? From when is that film? 2006 or so? I think it's, on people's mind. I think it's not a film that we need to remember now so importantly, I think. But, I think this is also due to the fact that this year is very sparse when it comes to the Americans. And I know Guillermo del Toro is not a US American, but I think it was made by an American studio. I'm not even sure, but it's in the Hollywood canon basically. And it feels like one of these many trade-offs they found to bring some Americans here. We also have the Fast and the Furious 25th anniversary with, I think that might be happening in this very moment.
I think you're right. I think it's a midnight screening tonight.
Oh my God. It's funny. Vin Diesel actually walked past me earlier today and he had his entourage and he's really as pumped as you would think. Yeah, very funny. And I love these moments when all the photographers are gone and then they miss out on the big star that's just, passing along. But once they sense it, they all jump
over the bush,
and run there.
Out of the bush.
It's really embarrassing. But in any case. So the second day, that also means we might not be talking so much about the first day, which is barely due to the fact that we neither watched the classic nor did we see the opening film. And
very bad.
As people who follow the festival know, it's actually maybe not so bad because usually the films tend to be very bad. And so far, from what I've heard, this one was not an exception, no?
I have heard from one person that they thought that it was a near masterpiece and they were going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay, I think this person was in the minority, but in any case, the film we're talking about is Pierre Salvadori's The La Vénus électrique, and I'm just mentioning a French title here because I don't want you to get confused with the Rainer Kohlberger masterpiece from 2024, The Electric Kiss, which is the international title.
For those of you who are familiar with that film, please drop us a line.
Yeah, the one person. But Kohlberger, please check him out. He's a very good filmmaker. What we did see then was at least the opening ceremony.
Yes.
In the Debussy, which is this almost live broadcast from the Lumière that is right next to the Debussy. And what did we see this year? We had Peter Jackson, who got his honorary Palme d'Or.
Yes.
He said himself, was something he never expected to receive.
What did he say? He said, I'm not a Palme d'Or kind of guy.
Yeah.
Or something like this.
Even not a Cannes guy, I think. I'm not sure, but
I think he...
Yeah. It was rather a human moment, I have to say, because the entire ceremony felt very much not human. It felt very artificial. All the people we saw, they felt like not human beings. Really.
Yeah, the host this year was Haidara, who is a French Malian actor who is in a film in one of the sidebar or non-highlighted sections, but still officially at Cannes. That's called Crescendo by Agnès Jaoui, who I believe we saw act in Sophie Fulliere's film
Ma vie, ma gueule.
Ma vie, ma gueule, yeah. This Life of Mine, which might have been the English title. And so this one is a bit of a different film that has to do with post-Me Too and the world of opera. But we did see her present. She was quite critical about the critics. And then she just talked about the glory of how we can all, for one night, all the filmmakers and will be kings. And then the following morning, then comes the criticism, then comes the fall from.
Such is our part here at the festival. And I don't think that we can take these kind of comments too seriously. I mean, what do we have to do with box office or anything like that? It's and today, as we said, there were some openings. For one, of course, there's the competition. And you, Aliana, saw one film that I did not see, and I'm not sure if I will. It really depends on what people tell me. And it's nice, perhaps one should say that on the podcast. And on the last day of the festival, you still have the chance to see all the competition films. They show once more, at least, and if it wins, even an extra one, because the Palme d'Or winner is being shown one last time in the evening of the last day, I think. And so if at the beginning there are certain films where you're not sure if you are really going to miss out if you skip one or two, this is a good thing to have in store at the end. So here we are talking about La vie d'une femme, right?
Yes. So this year there are 22 films in competition, and there are only 5 of those films that are directed by women. And that includes A Woman's Life, La vie d'une femme, by Charline Bourgeois-Tacquet, which is the one I saw today. Also have another French director, Léa Missius, The Birthday Party.
I did see her previous film.
And her previous film was Five Devils.
The Five Devils, yeah.
Jeanne Herry, Another Day, also French. So there are 3 French filmmakers of the 5 women, and then the remaining 2 have German/Austrian roots. Marie Kreutzer, and Valeska Grisebach. So Marie Kreutzer for Gentle Monster. She was in Un Certain Regard, was it? Or was it
I think it was Un Certain Regard
with Corsage, 3 or 4 years ago by now.
Won Vicky Krieps the prize for Best Actor.
Okay. Yeah. And then the long and awaited Valeska Grisebach, which we will most certainly be talking about on the podcast once we have seen it. Yes. So, A Woman's Life. Goodness, I would have to say, in some sense, this felt a bit like, and a lot of people are saying it, but a bit like The Worst Person in the World, which is also Julie en 12 chapitres, Julie in 12 chapters. This filmmaker has also made a film called Anaïs in Love from a couple of years ago. I'm not sure where it was first shown.
I think it played in Cannes somewhere.
Oh, okay.
I think in a sidebar. Yeah.
You have Lea Drucker playing a very, very competent surgeon. She's managing everything in her life. She has what seems like is control over every little thing. Her specialty is facial reconstructive surgery. And Drucker's character is married, but she has a somewhat open marriage. The husband prefers it to be closed, and she has this exploration where a younger woman who happens to be a writer hits on her, and then she explores that. And the film is somewhat comically, but also very neatly divided into 11 or 12 chapters or so. And each chapter has a nice little pink highlighter script text. It's, it's one of these films that is quite straightforward, well made. It somewhat touched me in some sense. It's a bit about longing, it's a bit about desire, but it's also about perhaps what does it mean to be a woman and having putting a career first and having the career kind of override. When two women are in the room, it's no longer necessarily like a lesbian deathbed they might experience, but the fact that their careers or their ambitions override their ability to potentially be together, even though it's not necessarily positioned as the greatest love, but it was still something that was a bit touching, a little bit of regret, a little bit of melancholy, a little bit of, like a kind of at the end of Carol type of a feel.
And I was wondering, in a more discursive or intellectual way, how does the film treat the idea of plastic surgery? Is that picked up in an interesting way?
I would say there's a moment where Drucke's character gives a lecture where she just basically states that you can think about this as a more philosophical question about identity. In her lecture, she says, which I think you would quite appreciate in some sense, she starts it off by saying that sameness is literally meaning two things that are exactly the same. And as her job is to reconstruct the faces of patients, she knows that she will never achieve sameness because you have the appearance, you have this, there are other layers of what could possibly contribute to what makes someone look like themselves. And so she just ends that up and wraps it up quite quickly with saying, like, these are questions that I consider, but what I'm also interested in doing is the more practical thing of just making it so that they have a face that they can walk outside with and not be either, she says, not noticeable or something like this. So it just skirts the idea of what you're asking.
To sum it up in the more like Roger Ebert way, thumbs up or thumbs down for this one?
Oof. I'd say in the middle for the thumb, because it's an easy watch, even though we're not always here to watch things that are easy to watch. It's an easy watch, and I found it okay. Maybe it could have been more interesting, and that's the damage in going through this, but it was lighthearted. It was simple, good comedy, relationship of a marriage that even though it's falling apart, it's still together, which reminded me of like Last Summer, the Catherine Breillat, but it was not done. It was done in a completely different tone that was more humoristic. And
okay, another section that opened today was the quinzaine, which is traditionally positioned in a very peculiar state because on the one hand, one tries to have as much as this is in Cannes possible, you have the more transgressive filmmakers, perhaps. Die Humani Corporis Fabrica, for instance, a few years ago. Like these kind of filmmakers you tend to have here as well. And I also listened to an interview, programmer / director, so the man who runs the quinzaine basically, and he spoke about the challenge that the quinzaine sometimes faces when it comes to attracting people, because what they have to do is also they have to reach audiences beside the critics and maybe some business people here, some people from the industry, just because there are general audiences here in Cannes as well. And if you come to Cannes, you can get tickets for the Semaine de la Critique and for Acide, these side sections, for free. For the quinzaine, you get tickets for €8, which is, compared to other festivals, still a very good deal. However, in order to attract audiences, they need to have at least one or two bigger names, to just draw people to other filmmakers who are equally worthwhile as well in this section. They were like 3 years ago, I think they started to give the quinzaine slightly a new facelift because there were fewer and fewer established filmmakers and more up-and-coming ones. And I think this year goes back to maybe, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when there were lots of bigger names in here as well. And this year we have people like Radu Jude, for instance. We have Lisandro Alonso. We have a few bigger names. We have Quentin Dupieux. We have the new Bruno Dumont, him as well. We have Cleo Banat. So we have a lot of established filmmakers this year. And this makes you wonder whether some of these filmmakers are also basically rejections from competition. And this leads us straight to Butterfly Jam by Kantemir Balagov. Because Balagov is known for Closeness and Beanpole, his last two films. I mean, his first two films as well. They both played at Cannes. And you could expect quite a bit of this based on his previous work. I think Beanpole was very impressive, especially if you consider how young he still is. He's about our age, I think. And what happened, however, is the Russian war in Ukraine, which had him migrate to the United States. He now is based in Los Angeles. And basically from there, you have to see the re-editing of his newest project, Butterfly Jam, which was originally supposed to be a film set in his hometown in Russia and is now set in New Jersey in a community of Circassians, right?
Circassian,
That's
yeah.
right.
Circassian community, specifically in Newark, apparently.
Right, yeah. Do you want to give us a brief overview of the film? Because we also have a stunning cast in here as well, right?
Yes. So we're supposed to be in the Circassian community in Newark, and the family that we are introduced to, which is a very broad family. We're introduced to Barry Keoghan, who is the father to a young boy that he calls Little One Pitaya or something.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Pitaya, or who has ambitions as a wrestler. Keoghan's character is a chef, and he makes delicious delaines, which are a type of Circassian snack or dish that are made of, it's like a flatbread with potatoes and
cheese as well.
And how can you not love something like this? And it's his mother's specialty dish. And he's with his sister, it seems, or his sister runs the restaurant, and the sister's name is Zalia. And I don't even understand the relation that Harry Melling's character has to the family, whether it's a relative or
I think
an
it's
uncle,
maybe more of a best friend.
Or a friend.
Yeah, just as a reminder, Harry Melling we primarily know now from last year's
Pillion.
Cannes film Pillion that we both liked quite a lot, I think.
Yes. You have two communities. You have the wrestling and you have the restaurant business. And the restaurant business
community.
/ the immigrant community / the American dream storyline arc. There's also a man who seems to be able to propose a more beautiful and refined and professional restaurant to Barry Keoghan's character. Yeah, and then the film sort of unfolds as there are reports that there's a strange bird that has landed near the beach somewhere in the city.
It's a pelican.
And it's a pelican, and people are wondering why it might have been there. Maybe it was a migration issue, maybe someone poached it. And this very much is a bit of an obvious metaphor for the entire, I guess, immigrant experience as a general, and also there specifically.
Yeah, because they say, I think, that the pelican landed and nested in a banana crate or something, right?
Yes.
So it's really all makeshift, as well as this family is somewhat makeshift there. The restaurant is also not running very well, so they are really looking actively for a new gig that might land them in a better home or something.
Yeah, but it was a bit unclear to me whether they were actually actively looking, but it is clear that there is always this desire to so-called be better and be less, and this is thematically relevant, weak. This comes up a lot in the film.
No, I think, like the first scene when it's a bit like a mafia setting, right?
Yeah.
Like they're in the back room basically, and they're playing maybe cards or something.
Yes.
And there's this one guy who seems to have made it, who's this businessman. And I think the father, the Barry Keoghan character, he really aspires to be a guy like this. You know?
I think I had a difficulty believing that, even though I read it in the press kit somewhere, which is another thing that we can talk about now or we can talk about later.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's not the only thing you had difficulties believing, no?
I don't know. Unfortunately, I think we both wanted to like this film a lot more than we did. I think we both had very high expectations. There are some similarities with Balagov's other film. I've only seen Beanpole personally. Maybe you've seen
I've also
Closeness as well. And in this gesture that keeps repeating itself, the strangulation, the hug, the embrace, the wrestling. And it was so very strange for me to hear, also in the Q&A that just followed, but also to watch the film as well, that he wanted the film to be about vulnerability and tenderness and physical affection shared between men. And I feel like what I watched and what I hear him say, there was a bit of dissonance for me, even though at the same time I can sort of feel it a little bit, but I wish I felt it while watching the film more, which is upsetting because I think, I don't know, Balagov's cinema is not something that I want to throw under the bus, but this film on so many different levels was just, it just felt like it was suffering from being Americanized or being, obviously what you explained from the beginning, the fact that the whole entire idea was picked up and then it was to be cast with an all English speaking cast. And then the exteriors apparently were shot in Newark while the interiors were shot in Dunkirk in France, which I think is kind of amusing given that Keoghan has also shot Dunkirk. Was he there?
I didn't know the specifics. I know it was shot in France. I think it misfires in a big way. I think one of the other problems that you haven't mentioned yet is that the film originally was supposed to include much more of the local community in New Jersey. And apparently they read the script and didn't like it. That's at least what Balagov suspected. And he's trying so hard to contest this very deeply ingrained toxic masculinity that at least he has identified in this kind of community. And I think one can see that he may have come off even as a bit imposing or, like getting his idea primarily across rather than trying a collaborative approach here, because it does seem very condemning, in a, I don't think so productive manner. I mean, you also have the color pink is everywhere, he really tries to contest preconceptions here. But in doing so, he becomes very obvious and there is no, there's little space for ambiguity in this film. And as often as his movies talk about suffocation, and as you said, the embrace becomes the strangulation, basically. Here, I think he also tries to develop all these motifs that don't feel necessarily organic to then make it into this product of a film at the end, because motifs come back, but they don't feel like they really belong in this film. It rather feels like, because a film is structured that way, we have to follow these kind of rules. That's how it felt to me.
Mm-hmm. It was very strange because I feel like I had such a different experience watching Beanpole, unless it was also the English. The one thing I can say is walking away from it, I do now know about Delaines. I do know about this food, and I do know that there is a Circassian community and that these are people who live somewhere near Newark. And in this, I can feel the homesickness. And that's the only thing that really has come across. But everything else, and I don't know if it's just the translation of language, because Beanpole was also very much about emotional dependency. There were two females, so he also got away in a somewhat different sense, because I'm not really sure what Riley Keough's character really
Yeah, she
brings
doesn't add much, right?
to this film. And she is a very talented actor as well. She's not bad in it. It's just rather that she's just there and she's playing another one of these. And I think that was also a nice like visual to have this dark brunette hair that everyone seemed to share and these eyes, something like this.
I think she's very good, but she's barely on screen, right? It's a bit like Lama Hine in the Kelly Reichardt, the Mastermind.
Yeah, in some sense, just being sidelined. But the dialogue also just came off as it was difficult, even though maybe if I am trying to be generous, like this is maybe what for him in his personal or directing or professional work journey of what being vulnerable is, like literally sitting on the floor of a kitchen with your sister asking, am I weak, and breaking down. I thought that was somewhat beautiful. Afterwards, when they did a little bit of traditional, I imagine, Circassian dancing, even though it was very brief, as if they were trying to return to their roots with no music, everything else is gone. And then Balagov has said about the film that for him, it's a fairy tale about masculinity, right? And I don't know how do you interpret that after seeing the film? See that as an opening point into the film, or?
Well, I can see it in a way that fairy tales are very closed narratives, right? You have a clear story arc, and at the end of the story, you have a moral. And I think this film is equally as clear cut, and especially the idea that you just mentioned that this one line can disrupt your entire existence, right? You are weak, and this, as a man, this will haunt you, and it won't let go of you, and will drive you to become the most...
And then to cyclically abuse those
to pass
around
that on
you
to other
who you
people.
believe are even weaker.
But it's as I said, it's not very subtle. It's not very ambiguous. It's all very easy to grasp. And I think it also doesn't help his project here that this is so much less visually interesting than Beanpole.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's in many ways more conventional. I think it really doesn't work. I'm sorry about it.
Yeah.
As you said in the beginning, I really wanted to like it. Yeah, I think we end this episode with something that you can report us from, because you attended an event that I did not have a chance to see. That was Claire Denis in person, right?
Yes. I saw a little Claire Denis in person, given that I was in the balcony in the back. And she was there because this year she's the recipient of the Carrosse d'Or, which is gifted by the same people who essentially, you were talking about this earlier, who organized Quinzaine des now Cinéastes, which is the Société de réalisatrices et réalisateurs de film, or the French Directors Guild, effectively. In previous years, they've given this award, which they award to filmmakers that they believe have left like some indelible mark on cinema as a whole. So they gave it to Todd Haynes last year, the year before, Andrea Arnold. They've given him one to Kelly Reichardt, Panahi, Jarman, Varda, Wiseman, Karosmecki, Jaylan, etc., etc., etc. And so this year, usually the procedure goes that they choose a film, they show the film, and then they have a mini masterclass. The film shown was from 1994 called J'ai pas sommeil, or I Can't Sleep is the English title. This title, maybe you can argue it also means I'm not tired as well. It's a bit vague, yeah. Mm-hmm. Depends contextually on how you're using it. Oh, it was actually really so lovely.
And the film, was this restored, or was it just a selection they made?
So we were treated to a 35 millimeter print.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I could hear it winding up. It was almost amusing, but dreadful as a projectionist. There was a man sitting in the very back of the balcony, and as soon as the film started playing, we're in a helicopter, and we were seeing the images of two men laughing, and it was completely silent. Then this man rushes up because he knows something's wrong. There's no sound. And he runs into the projection booth, and we could hear him yelling. And then a second later, we have sound. So typical. Yes, analog projectioning is
The
not
liveness of it all.
is an
Yeah.
art, it seems. And well, it's a simple and very complicated tale that was, it's so bad because I almost don't feel like explaining it because there's such beauty in just me not knowing much about it and discovering it. But I maybe will give away a little bit by saying that Denis was inspired by newspaper articles that came out in the 80s that were about a gay couple who seemed to have been on a killing spree of elderly women in France. And this was to obtain their money, it seems. Basically theft and also murder. And I think it was something that was really just disturbing at the time. And when these men were caught, I believe one of them, according to Denis' masterclass, which is also according to my interpretation of what Denis said at her masterclass, one of them, the mother had an interview with one of these, what are they called? These outlets that are sort of, they just want hot news and hot off
Yellow
the
press.
yellow press news. And the mother essentially called her, said, I wish I had never given birth to you. You're the devil, you're Satan. Of the son, that I don't know if it's just because she was aware of the killings, etc. or not. But Denis takes us back. We follow Katerina Golubeva, who we've seen in 29 Palms. I'm not 100% sure, but I think she might have been the protagonist in that film as well. And she's just come from Lithuania. And so it's another immigrant story, actually. And this was such a drastic contrast to the Balagov film. It's an immigrant story. She's come to Paris. She can barely speak French. She's trying to go to the cafes. She's driving in her manual car, and she's spreading the map of Paris over the entire steering wheel, the way that they did back in the day. And
it's very cinematic.
Yes, exactly. And she winds up finding eventually her great aunt or so. Her great aunt puts her up in a hotel. And this hotel also has another guest and another two guests. And those guests happen to be a couple. And we see how this couple, the male, who is Richard Courset, he has a brother who is played by Alex Descas, who was in 35 Rums. And we see a different backstory. It's told as if you have rewound to try, because I think she tries, in a sense, to find the humanity of this so-called story that she was inspired by. She's not trying to pathologize or anything, but rather she creates these characters and these lives that happen to be living with one connection through the hotel together. And it was just really a very shocking but also beautiful film.
And I think it's a great choice because that's a film I don't hear anyone ever talk about when they talk about her oeuvre.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so rich by now. Of course, there's so many films, but that's a film I've barely ever heard of. So it's a good pick.
There's a great sensitivity in which I think she is able to just notice and observe and feel certain rhythms or prejudices of life. The fact that she's depicting frequently due to her upbringing. I believe she was raised in a colonial area.
Yeah, I think she was, because I think that's why she made this film White Material.
Yes, which was very early on as well.
Yeah.
And for that she even searched for a house that resembled the type of house that she grew up in. She talked about this in the masterclass, that's why I'm saying it. And then she mentioned that she couldn't even find a house that resembled the type of colonial house that she grew up in, because the houses that they have then when she filmed it had AC, and she didn't want them to have AC, which is a nice little tidbit. But yeah, just a true sensitivity to just like what it means to be an immigrant in France too, which is almost ironic, but it obviously takes perhaps observation. But she's critical mainly to the colonizers. There's this long scene where we follow the brother of this man who lives in the hotel, and he's a kind of a handyman. And he goes to a woman's house and he constructs a whole entire bookshelf. And then the woman is one of these sort of prissy French women. And after it's done, she goes, maybe I think it'd look better on the other side of the wall. And he just doesn't say anything. He's silent. And he just walks out of the room. And then he says, okay, well, I've done the work, taking into consideration the materials and etc. Are you going to pay me? And then she says, oh, I can't give you cash, but I can give you a check. And then he says, no, we agreed that you'd give me cash. She comes back and she says, oh, well, I put away some money for groceries, but here you go. Hands him 2,000. He looks at it, he counts it. He goes, we said 3,000. And she goes, well, you know, you're not declaring this, so why should I give this to you? It's really so cruel. I mean, honestly, an everyday scene that I'm sure you can even see today. And he's accompanied by his little son. So that you have this cruel dimension, but then you also have this
humiliation of the father, right?
Like slightly, but the son is also like, you tell her, like in his gestures, like you tell her. He's also very like leading and guiding and educative. Like this is not right. Young son already knows it, and he's not humiliated. He's standing his ground, which I thought was just so simple but powerful as well. I know I say that a lot. Anyways, we should probably wrap up. I wanted to ask you if there's any films that you're looking forward to. We are only on day 2, and
yeah, by now we are on day 3 because it's past midnight now.
All right.
Yeah, I think one of the films I'm looking forward to the most is Valeska Grisebach's film. We've mentioned it earlier on the podcast today. This follows Western. I have liked all of Grisebach's films quite a lot. I think next to Maren Ade, she is maybe the most important filmmaker from Germany of the past 20 years, perhaps. And this one's going to be interesting because it really means a kind of new path for her filmmaking. The central character of her new film is called Veska. And you can tell, okay, this one's gonna be autofictional. And we know of her that she has spent years now between Germany and the Bulgarian borderland, between Bulgaria and Greece, where she already shot Western. So her filmmaking has approximated more and more kind of ethnographic approach. And I'm all in for that. I think she's learned the language as well, so it's all going to be very keenly observed, I'm sure. I'm also not so much after Evil Does Not Exist, which I didn't like as much, but when I look back to 2021, that was the year of Hamaguchi, right?
Yes.
There was The Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, and we had also Drive My Car, of course. I really like both films, probably Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy a bit more, but I think he's an excellent scenarist. You know, he writes great screenplays and he has atmosphere. It's all very evocative, and it's over 3 hours. I'm all in for it. We have a new Radejude film as well, which is not so much a remake, but a reworking, I guess, of the Buñuel film of the same name, which is Diary of a Chambermaid, which is the international title here. And I also wanted, just because I think for our podcast it would be easy to forget, because we saw the new William Greaves film at Sundance.
Once Upon a Time in Harlem.
Exactly. And this is playing here at the Kansen and has its European premiere. So I think everyone who has the chance to see that film, please do. It's a great treat.
Yes.
And what are you looking forward to?
I mean, many of the same titles that you just mentioned. I'm very curious about the Ira Sachs, The Man I Love. It'll be Sachs's first time in competition, and this will be a musical. We'll see how that goes. And I believe The Man I Love comes from a song written by Gershwin. sang by many famous singers, including Ella Fitzgerald, etc. It was originally a part of a musical that never maybe became very big to begin with. And
again, also a period piece in New York, right? Like the last film.
Yes. This is also going to be a period piece, yes, in New York.
Yeah, I think it's set in the 80s, yeah.
Yes, yeah, during the AIDS crisis. I'm looking forward to the Pavel Pawlikowski a bit, The Fatherland, just simply because the cinematography will probably be very nice, even though I already have an inkling that we will be talking about more than that once we see it. And
that one has Sandra Hüller in it.
Yes.
And she plays Erika Mann and accompanies her father, Thomas Mann, on a road trip from, I think, Frankfurt to Weimar. Yeah.
A fantasy.
Right, that never happened. But I think it's loosely inspired by the novel by Colm Tobin. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He had this film, The Magician. He had this novel, The Magician, which was sort of big in the United States. I don't know if it was internationally as successful, but I think it's loosely based on at least a section of that book as well.
And speaking of Sandra Hüller, I'm also interested in Arthur Harari, who is known for co-screenwriting Anatomy of a Fall, in which Sandra Hüller starred. And he will be directing a third feature film called L'Inconnu, or The Unknown, which will star Léa Seydoux and Niels Schneider.
Yeah, and Radu Jude.
And Radu Jude, yes, and Radu Jude. So everything is all coming together. All the names are...
Right, and that, I mean, we'll talk about that later, but this is also an adaptation of a graphic novel he wrote together with his brother. But yeah, more about that later, I guess. Yes. So, yeah, for now, thank you, Aliana, and speak to you tomorrow, probably, or today by now.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.